Okay, everybody, here we are with Lulu and the Brontosaurus. We're going to start off on chapter 9 and find out what happened when Lulu woke up. Lulu closed and then opened, then closed, then opened her eyes again, and decided she wasn't dreaming after all. She quickly climbed out of her sleeping bag and announced to the Brontosaurus, "It's my birthday, and just in time I found you!" "No, I've found you," the Brontosaurus told Lulu. "And I'd like to wish you a very happy birthday." "Oh, it will be very happy," Lulu said to the Brontosaurus, "because you," she patted his ankle, because his ankle was as high as she could reach, "you are the pet that I'm getting for my birthday." The Brontosaurus bent down his neck so that his face was close to Lulu's. He looked at her back to front and head to toes, sniffing her carefully with his Brontosaurus nose and making rumbly noises. Nobody knows how dinosaurs sound, but in my story they rumble. And slowly nodding his pinhead head. "A pet," he said to Lulu, after he'd nodded for a while, "is a very good thing." "A very, very good thing," Lulu replied. She opened up her suitcase and went digging around inside and pulled out a white leather collar, which she fastened around the Brontosaurus's neck. "Now I'll just attach this leash." She dug some more and found a long, long leash in her suitcase. "And I'll take you home with me." Lulu attached the leash to the collar, feeling so pleased with herself that she sang a whole new Brontosaurus song. "I got it, I got it, I got what I wanted, a Brontosaurus for a pet." She would have kept feeling pleased with herself, except now the Brontosaurus was shaking his head. And now, in his rumbling voice, he was saying, "No." He was saying no and shaking his head until the collar and leash flew off. "No," he said, "I don't wish to be your pet." Lulu, remember, hated hearing the word no. She really, really hated the word no. She screeched till all the birds fled from the trees, and then she threw herself down on the forest floor, and then she kicked her heels and waved her arms. The Brontosaurus waited patiently, without saying a word, until she stopped with the screeching and the kicking and the waving. "Finished now?" he politely asked. "Maybe I am," Lulu said. "And maybe I'm not. It all depends." And here she shook a finger right in the Brontosaurus's face. This girl was a pain, but she wasn't a scaredy cat. "It all depends on whether you stop saying no and start saying yes to being my pet." The Brontosaurus shook his head no some more. Lulu thought about screeching and so forth some more, but instead she said, in a very snippy voice, "Now listen here. You were the one who just said to me a minute ago that, I quote, 'a pet is a very good thing.' Wrong voice. That's what I said," the Brontosaurus admitted. "So what," Lulu asked, "is your problem, Mr. B?" "No problem," the Brontosaurus answered. "Just a misunderstanding. Because when I said that a pet is a very good thing, I didn't mean I wanted to be your pet. I meant that you'd make a very good pet for me." Chapter 10. Lulu's eyes were two round O's of amazement. She tried to speak, but at first no words came out. Then finally she was able to say, in a squeaky, amazed kind of voice, "I don't think I heard what I think I just heard, Mr. B." "You did indeed," the Brontosaurus replied. "Well, if I did," Lulu's voice was back to being its old bossy self again. "Well, if I did, I've got some news for you. A person has a pet. An animal is a pet. A person can't be an animal's pet. Ever. And I have some news for you," the Brontosaurus said to Lulu. Except that he spoke more politely than Lulu had done. "You're about to be the first person ever to be an animal's pet. Congratulations! And once again, happy birthday." He reached out a hand, or whatever you want to call it, and gently scooped Lulu off the forest floor. He then plunked her gently down, where his back met his neck. "Hold on tight, little pet," he said to Lulu. "I'll pull off some leaves off the tops of the trees for your breakfast, and then I'm taking you home to live with me." "No!" yelled Lulu. "No, no, no! A billion, zillion times no!" "Yes, yes, yes," the Brontosaurus replied. "I'll feed you and pat you and play with you and treat you very nicely, and all I'll expect for you to do is sit and roll over and fetch a ball and do cute tricks." What did he think she was? Some kind of dog girl? I really don't know. I can't read a dinosaur's mind. Lulu thought about screeching and throwing herself on the forest floor, except that the forest floor was a long way down. She thought about squeezing the dinosaur dead, except that she needed both hands to hang onto his neck. She thought about swinging and swinging her suitcase and bonking him on the head, except that she'd left her suitcase under a tree. And she couldn't stomp on his foot because his feet were far too far from his back, where he'd plunked her. Then Lulu started to think that the only thing farther from where the Brontosaurus had plunked her was her home. Her home where her mom and her dad were waiting. Her very own home where no one, not even when she was being a pain, which was most of the time, had ever expected her to sit and roll over and fetch and do cute tricks. "I want to go home to my house," Lulu told the Brontosaurus, then added in a lot less bossier voice, "Please, let me go back to my house, Mr. B." This was maybe the first time in Lulu's entire life that she, without being told, had used the P word. And yet the Brontosaurus shook his head no. "Once you get used to it," he kindly told Lulu, "I truly believe that you'll like being a pet." Lulu imagined being a pet in the house of this Brontosaurus and never seeing her mom and her dad again. She imagined eating leaves and doing cute tricks, and she said to herself that if only she could turn today into yesterday, she wouldn't go looking for dinosaurs in the forest, and she wouldn't say "Foo on you" to her mom and her dad. She was feeling especially sorry that she had ever said "Foo on you" to her mom and her dad. Chapter 11. The Brontosaurus pulled leaves off the trees and was offering them to Lulu. He grabbed them and threw them angrily. She grabbed them and threw them angrily away. "A simple no thank you will do," the Brontosaurus said to Lulu. "And I really like that please you used before." "So please, 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 let me please go home," yelled Lulu. "Oh, your yelling hurts my ears," the Brontosaurus said. "But I have to admit that even if you had asked me softly and sweetly, I still would want to keep you here with me. I've been lonely a long time, and a pet is a very good thing." For hours and hours and hours, from early morning till just past noon, Lulu kept telling the Brontosaurus that he had to let her go home, and the Brontosaurus kept telling Lulu no. He also kept assuring her that he'd do his absolute best to make her happy. He spoke in such a kind and nice and polite and patient voice that after a while, Lulu was talking, not yelling. And after a while, she was talking softly and sweetly. And pretty soon after that, she started to cry. Yes, Lulu started to cry. And it wasn't very often that Lulu cried. She'd rather screech till the light bulbs burst and all that other stuff. But right now, she didn't feel screechy. She felt teary. And so she cried and cried and cried, soaking the Brontosaurus with her tears. He patiently waited as Lulu continued soaking him and the forest floor with her tears. He patiently waited some more, and then he said, "I'm sorry I'm making you cry, little pet, but I won't be changing my mind. Would you like a tissue?" Lulu now understood that no matter how hard she cried and how nice this dinosaur was, he was determined to keep her as his pet. And she now understood that if she was determined to not be his pet, she would have to escape. She cried just a little bit longer, but while she was crying on the outside, she was on the inside making a getaway plan. Sniffing a watery sniff, Lulu said to the Brontosaurus, "Thank you, Mr. B. I do need some tissues. If you'll just let me down on the forest floor a minute, I'm sure I can find a box of them in my suitcase." The Brontosaurus lowered his head and his neck to the floor of the forest. Lulu slid off, stood up, smiled a little, and walked to her suitcase. She opened it, poked around for a while, and found, are you surprised, a big box of tissues. But instead of taking the tissues out, she put her sleeping bag in, snapped her suitcase shut, and started running. The Brontosaurus stood stiff and still, as if he'd been glued to the ground, and then he started running after Lulu. But Lulu had darted off the path into the heart of the forest, into a part of the forest where the trees grew so close together that a creature as huge as this dinosaur could not fit. She zigged and she zagged and she zigged and she zagged through all those close together trees while the Brontosaurus looked for spaces to squeeze through. He was trying his hardest to catch her, as hard as a mountain-sized creature can try. But she was leaving him farther and farther behind. "Come back, little pet, come back!" Lulu could hear him calling, first loudly, then softer and softer. "Come back, little pet, I know you'll be happy with me. Come back, little pet." His voice grew even softer, and soon she could not hear his voice anymore. Since Lulu could not hear his voice anymore, she stopped running and started walking. She tromped through the forest in silence, heading for home. But she wasn't swinging her suitcase, and she wasn't singing her song. And although she very much wanted to see her mom and her dad again, and very much wanted not to be a pet, she felt kind of bad about the Brontosaurus. And so do I. Because even though I'm the person writing this story, I don't like leaving him all alone, sadly calling, "Come back, little pet, come back." Chapter 12. That's where we'll end for today. So, what do you think? Would you feel bad like Lulu? Or would you feel kind of glad that you're going back home? See you next time.